Hey everyone, can you all hear me? Fantastic. Well, we'll go ahead and give people a few minutes to jump on just in case they are running late. So please, feel free to mute yourselves and we'll get started in just a bit. All right. Thanks for being here. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second VPSA Chat of the Biennium. My name is Bonko, your National Vice President for Student Affairs and host / moderator for tonight's panel discussion. I will do my best. I make no promises. But tonight we have four incredible panelists who will share their ideas and experiences on our month of musicianship. And this is really meant for all of us, not just chapter leaders, to learn about how we as individuals and as chapters can become active participants during our month of musicianship and really keep true and live out our purposes. So just some housekeeping items before we start. Please make sure to mute yourselves during this discussion so that we can hear the panelists while they're speaking. And second thing is we highly encourage questions during these discussions. So please feel free to add a note on the side chat bar and I'll make sure to moderate and add those questions into our discussion. Third thing is this call will be recorded so that, for us to utilize in future situations. So, once this is up on our YouTube page, please feel free to share it with your chapters and to watch it again for further inspiration. And the last thing is that there will be a survey sent out to all of you after this call. So please be on the lookout for that. Your feedback really helps us figure out how to develop our content to really fit your needs and how to serve your journey as active brothers to our organization. Sound good? Fantastic. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Panelists, can you go ahead and give us an intro to who you are, what you do, and what your current role is with the fraternity? We'll go ahead and start with Jessica.
All right. Hey, everyone. You probably cannot see me right now. I am in a dark car, but I promise you'll be able to see my face in a few minutes. I am the Southeast District Vice President of Programs. So I have, and this is actually my second term in that office. So I have been a part of planning programming for the Southeast District to incorporate that into our district, as well as participating in national programming. And I'm also a student at the University of Central Florida. So I'm a brother of the Eta Sigma chapter.
Awesome, thank you. Let's go ahead and have Anthony next.
Hi, I'm Anthony. It says Joshua Bell, but my name is Anthony. So I am a second year at Fresno State University. I am the current music chair of Iota Alpha. Other than that, I'm just a member of KK Psi.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, let's go ahead and go to Ashley.
Hello, my name is Ashley. I am a brother of the Gamma Iota chapter at the University of New Mexico. I am the Southwest District Secretary Treasurer, and then at my chapter level, I am the co-head for the Education Committee. But yeah.
Awesome, thank you. All right, and the one and only Mikey.
Hi, everyone. I am Mike Napolitano, your National Vice President for Programs, past Northeast District Governor, and life member of the Kappa Upsilon chapter at Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Awesome. Well, so before we get started with the questions that were sent in prior to this call, Mikey, if you wouldn't mind, could you give us some historical background to our Month of Musicianship?
Sure. Month of Musicianship is actually a relatively young program. It was started by Derek Mills, past national president, during his term as vice president for programs. And it comes back as a way to celebrate that part of our brand, that pillar of musicianship that we rely on in terms of unifying our fraternity, that celebrates what music means to us and why we do what we do.
Awesome, thank you so much. All right, so for our, let's see here, our next question. So we'll start with some of these questions. And again, these were submitted in advance to our meeting starting. So for our panelists tonight, could you share some of your past impressions and understanding of our Month of Musicianship? And again, please feel free to be open and honest with your thoughts. Ashley, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Hello again. So when I first started in Kappa Psi, I knew that Month of Musicianship was a thing, and I knew that our founding date was in that month, but I didn't really know much else. And there wasn't a lot as like a membership candidate at that time that like there was for me to like look into or dig into. So I just kind of felt like it was just another month, a national month of something. And so I really didn't know like all that much about it. So.
Awesome, thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and shoot over to Anthony.
So this is actually going to be my first semester experiencing a Month of Musicianship as an active member. My last year in college, on the outside looking in, as far as like chapter wise, I didn't really notice too much. There was a convocation performance that was cool, and I did attend. But other than that, there wasn't too much. So I'm hoping to do more of that as a music chair right now.
Fantastic, love it. All right, Jessica, what are your thoughts?
So thinking about the Month of Musicianship, I remember in fall 17, my first active semester in the fraternity, I remember Nick Bratcher having kind of a hashtag contest of like, hey brothers, we're looking for a hashtag from one of you students to be our hashtag for the Month of Musicianship. So I kind of thought it was just like, okay, cool. Like students are kind of coming up with ideas for that hashtag. And then this Month of Musicianship is just kind of like a social media campaign of like, yeah, musicianship is cool. And that's what we're about. And maybe chapters posting about like, here's a picture of us being musicians and participating in musicianship. But it didn't seem to be something where it was really action driven as opposed to just kind of a post something that y'all do on social media. So it was a pretty social media based interpretation of that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. No, thank you all for your honesty. And again, I think, the reason we are having this conversation, and, it may sound dry, it may sound boring, but you can see here, this is something that is really important to our organization and very important to the core of who we are and our identity as a very unique organization. But as you can hear from our panelists, there is a large area or a lot of room for us to grow and continue to build this program. And tonight, I hope that you can kind of hear, learn, and see how some of these smaller actions can start to compound and create bigger change, can create an impact for not only your chapter, not only your band program, but really for the musical world itself. So again, our goal is to talk on smaller ideas and how we can utilize these smaller actions as individuals and as chapters to really build upon, and to pass that from year to year, so that we're not continuing to have to relearn the wheel. So before we get into other questions, Mikey, any other thoughts from you on this?
I think what's so really important about where we're driving this conversation is this opens up such a great broad expanse of telling our stories about what we do with music. I try to think back in when Month of Musicianship started, and social media wasn't even a thing. And how is it that we were able to sustain during those times? What did we demonstrate, and why did we demonstrate it? And I think we're going to revisit that this year. We're going to look at what are our personal connections to music and how is it celebrated through our actions in the fraternity. And I'm excited to see where we go with this. And I'm excited to see where the conversations go tonight.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so for our next question here, and we'll start with Anthony. Can you share one action that you take to build or strengthen your personal musicianship that other brothers can try today, that they can implement today?
So one thing that I do personally would be listen to new music, and not essentially just kind of like, I guess, stuff that I already like, but stuff that branches off into different genres or different cultures, and kind of like widen my, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. It's widen my horizon.
Expand your horizon.
Yes, yeah. Jinx. Okay. Yeah. Just do that stuff to open up that musicianship within myself. That's it.
Awesome. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like sometimes people tend to stick to the things that they like, and I think listening to, exposing yourself to different types of music is a really great way to do that. So awesome. Thank you. Let's go to Mike.
So one of the things I think that's really should be a cornerstone in anything that we're doing before the programming happens is maybe we need to have that discussion about what is musicianship and what does that mean to us. It is so broad and so vague to some people that sometimes we get really specific because we like to make definitions. But musicianship unto itself is really an appreciation for the craft and the exposure to the craft and the refining of the skill. So what are we doing as chapters to make a broader expanse of knowledge? What are we doing to refine the music that's already in front of us within our band programs? One of the best ways that you can become a better musician is to listen. And do we actually just take some of that time and sit together as a chapter or as a band and listen to music? So I think part of that is discussing what exactly musicianship is, how are we defining it collectively within our chapters, and where can we bridge those gaps in where we are and meet all of our brothers and our chapter members where they are, and then how do we elevate musicianship beyond there? I've seen tons of chapters do essentially like a practice log competition. How many people can spend as much time in the practice room refining their craft as possible and building musicianship that way. But we've also seen chapters that really are only driven out of recruiting from their marching band program, and they'll sit through and they'll listen to some of the materials from their university concert bands, and they're building in a broader knowledge base that way. So I think it's part of the challenge is to discuss exactly what musicianship means to us.
No, I love that. And I think that's extremely important, just because as I am experiencing different chapters in different districts, and really learning that, music, again, is just such that universal language that it can mean so many different things. It can serve so many, people in such different ways as well. So I think, having that introspection yourself is going to be really important, so that you can share that to others and hopefully inspire them as well. So thank you. All right, let's go on to Jessica. What are your thoughts, or what is one action that brothers can implement today? Oh, I think you're muted.
Okay, am I unmuted now?
Yes.
Yay, perfect. So something that I think about when it comes to improving my musicianship, as has been kind of mentioned already, expanding the music that I actually listen to. I am a pretty active participant in my university's ensembles, concert ensembles, as well as marching band. So I do a lot of playing of music, but listening to concert music and exposing myself to new pieces that I haven't heard and genres of those concert music is something that I like to do, especially in that month of musicianship, to kind of just expose myself to things that I'm not normally exposed to.
Yeah, no, I love that. I don't know if I'm the only one here, but so many times, I go to these concerts or I hear things on TV and it's like, some sort of piece and it's like, I cannot remember the name of this. It is probably, something in E minor or something, like it's just like, I can never remember these names. So I continuously have to expose myself to, different kinds of music so and that I can learn more about it. But as of right now, it's a struggle for me. So I appreciate that. All right, so last year, Ashley, what is one action that brothers can take?
So the kind of idea that I had come up with for myself this month is, so I'm very busy. I'm student teaching right now. So I'm not on campus as much as I'd like to be, but my goal is to find a short solo, and work on it, on the time that I do have, and then perform it for my chapter during a chapter meeting. And so that is something that I'm gonna start. Oh my gosh, November starts what, Friday? So that's gonna be my goal, and that's a very personal goal, but that's the one way that I've been able to build in strengthening my musicianship.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think we can all be honest and say that, yeah, we should probably be playing more as well, all of us. So I appreciate that. All right, so we're going to shift from personal actions that we're taking to what are some musical related activities that our chapters can implement during chapter time. And this may tie into some of your personal activities, but what are some activities that chapters can use during their meeting time? And we'll start with Mikey.
How awesome would it be if we could dedicate some time during our chapter meetings to really honing in and learning the fraternity hymn and song the way that it's written? It's a great way to develop some great ear training skills. It makes us better listeners as we start to develop a skill set in determining harmony in the way that it's written. If you've got people that can plunk on the piano within your chapters, it's a great way to cycle them in running notes. So that's a real basic thing, and it's something that we should be familiar with just by practice of what we do in the fraternity. You can dedicate some chapter time to listening. So if there is something that's coming through your chapter, you're planning for a concert or you're doing a recital, listen to the tracks of this music on Spotify or create a playlist of what your chapter members are playing if they're doing solo recitals. Help build an appreciation for the other things that they're doing. And then if you even want to go like meta on this, start to dig into the history around some of why these pieces were created and why they were composed, and learn the cultural context behind the music, because we say it all the time, music is that universal language, but then it means it tells a story. And what story do some of the pieces that you're playing, what story are they telling? And why are they exciting? And why did you choose them? Sometimes you choose a piece because it's one of those challenging pieces that you know that you need to tackle so that you hit that next skill level. But there's something about the melody of those pieces. There's something about the structure of those songs that sticks with you. And what is it? And can you find out what that is and have a conversation about it? Work within your chapters to determine why we select those worthwhile pieces when we're digging into musicianship. So just dedicate some time when you're all together. Listening parties are awesome ideas. If you're unfamiliar with some of your university band pieces, sit through and have a listening party where you're listening to some of these tracks on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever service you have. And try to get a good listen, try to dig in your part and try to figure out where you fit in. Where do you fit into the musical puzzle in this? So you are bringing that personal relationship to music back into your band program.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. I think that's incredibly powerful. And as you were talking, you were making me think, for those of you who were at National Convention, there was that little web thingy that was near the shrine. And there was one night, I myself was obviously very stressed out. So some of the brothers that I traveled with, we just laid out under the stars and just, played some songs and some pieces on my phone. And I mean, it was just for me, it was so simple, so relaxing, but it really just brought us still together. And we were just like kind of sharing our thoughts, like, oh, I remember playing this in 6th grade, or, I remember trying to play this and I completely failed. So, I think that, that listening time can be incredibly simple, easy to add to your chapter time, and incredibly powerful. So thank you. All right, so let's go on to Jessica. What are some musical related activities that chapters can implement?
So I'm actually really excited to share about this question because my chapter at University of Central Florida, when I first came into the chapter, we didn't really practice musicianship in ways beyond like, oh yeah, we're in marching band, or oh yeah, we're in concert band. But we've had some really good lyre guards come through that have really upped our participation in musicianship. So for example, last year we decided to get together as a chapter and spend time in chapter practicing a holiday themed piece to sing for our TBS chapter. And we actually continued that this year. We're actually going to be singing for our TBS chapter this Wednesday, some spooky Halloween music. And then we're also going to be singing some more holiday music a little bit later in the semester. And it used to be that when we would have time in chapter for singing, there was kind of this mentality of just like, oh, we have to sing again, like, do we really, like, I just don't want to do this, it's so late. And now it's more like, oh, I can't wait to sing the Halloween music and like practice that. And it's something that a lot of our brothers are just really excited about because it is kind of practicing our musicianship in a way that's not I don't want to say natural, but not kind of what we're used to, because everyone in our band in our chapter either like spins flag or plays an instrument. We don't really sing. And so moving from a mentality of like, oh, singing to like, oh yeah, I can't wait to sing this music, whether it's for our TBS sisters or working on the hymn, just like Mikey was sharing. Those are some cool things that my chapter personally has done to kind of increase our musicianship when we're actually meeting together as a chapter.
I love it. I don't know if I actually know any Halloween songs, so I hope you guys live stream some of this stuff so I can learn along with you. Awesome, thank you. Let's go on to Ashley. What are some activities chapters can implement?
Yeah, so I think I kind of had a similar experience to Jessica where it was like not that much. But something that our current VPP started doing is two things. So one, I mentioned it before, was playing during chapter meetings. And so we've had duets, we've had solos, we've had like one of our brothers will play guitar and sing. And they're usually these ridiculously funny songs, but like it's a moment that we all get to share together. And then another thing that we do, we call it Kappa story time. And we just finished like going through every single person in the chapter following a prompt, which was like, what's your primary instrument? What brought you to that instrument? Or like, why did you pick that instrument? What's your favorite memory in music? And then like, where do you want to go with music? Because not like most of my chapter is not a music major. So it allowed us to really reflect on where we want to go with music. And we're just finishing up. Our president is our last to go. And then we're going to shift and do Kappa story time about the rest of the pillars too. But this past year, we've been working on like just reflecting on our musicianship and then playing in our meeting.
Fantastic. I love that. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So let's see. For the last one for this question, Anthony, what are some activities chapters can implement?
So one very simple one that we did during our retreats is where we just, we're gonna do, I guess, lunch, but instead of make it a little bit more interesting and make it a music social, to kind of similar to just like hanging out, listening to music, but we, wrote down music, and when people came up to share their song in this room, they would talk about why they're sharing it, what it means to them, what to listen for, as far as like if you're like brand new to this music, then like you say like, oh, listen to this really cool counterpoint at this one point, or like the harmonies, how they change and stuff like that, just so it can kind of like explain to them not only why they chose it, but like they can hear why they chose it. And then another thing, which was something that I noticed on social media, which is like when people will do 100 days of practice. And I thought, how can we do that as a chapter? And so now we implemented that, and it's currently run by the webmaster. And it just 100 days nonstop, video after video of Brother, and you kind of like learn the chapter that way and see their musicianship, and you can just like look through the feed and just see them improve and grow throughout the year and stuff. So yeah, I think those are two kind of easy, and they keep you on your feet. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks, Anthony. Yeah, for any of you out there who are curious, on Twitter, search for Alpha or Iota Alpha and search for their thread. I mean, they have this entire thread of just brothers doing, musical activities, practicing. There's people conducting, there's people playing. I mean, there's all these things happening that, again, so simple that it compounds to, again, create this bigger image, this bigger value for people to learn from. So awesome. Thank you. So our next question here is one that I think many of us have heard before or have dealt with. The question is, how can a chapter stay involved with the month of musicianship the entire month when we are so busy with marching band activities, service projects, and just regular schoolwork? And we'll start with Jessica.
Yeah, so this is something that I definitely face as the Southeast District VPP, because one of the programs that we have in the Southeast District are called statewide-a-thons, which are just social media-based competitions where chapters are encouraged to post about events that they have that focus on leadership, musicianship, service, and brotherhood. And so this upcoming month, with the month of musicianship, we do have the statewide-a-thon for musicianship. So I have guidelines of like, if you have an event like this, you can earn this many points. But a lot of chapters over the years have brought up this point of like, how am I supposed to have like an event each week when I'm doing all of these other activities? So there's definitely kind of that important balance that we want to have. Something that I think would be really cool to stay involved with the month of musicianship throughout all of the band activities and homework and all of that stuff would be just to spend some time either as a chapter or individually reflecting on musicianship, like not necessarily music, but your participation in the activity, to spend time, asking yourself, what brought me to music, and why do I stay involved in it as a college student? Something that many chapters do have is a lyre guard or some sort of position like music director or something like that. So chapters who do have an officer with those sort of responsibilities, I think it'd be a great idea for that officer to maybe have a question of the week that asks the chapter, what is your favorite genre of concert music and why? And just kind of open up a discussion where it's not so action-based of like, oh, let's have this event or do this thing, because those things are great. But when you have a really crazy week and you have so many tests, maybe it's it's not feasible to have an event or something like that, but it is feasible just to kind of spend some time as a chapter, like discussing not just like the general themes of like, what does music mean to you, but some more specific questions, and just spend some more time on like self-reflection and reflection as a chapter, because I think that is something that is really important for the way that we approach the month of musicianship. I think addressing the mindset of my chapter that when I was mentioning earlier how we kind of had that mindset shift, it wasn't just this like, okay, here's this list of activities of things that we're going to do to improve our musicianship. We first had to step back and just kind of spend some time reflecting and gather like, okay, why do I value musicianship? Why do we as a chapter, not like, oh, we're part of KKSI, we have to value it, but like, why do we actually value musicianship? What impact does it have on us? Because I think those times of self-reflection and just sitting back to think about it can be so poignant in kind of changing your direction of how you approach things like the month of musicianship.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Yeah, I love that. All right, so let's go on to Anthony. What are, how can a chapter stay involved throughout the month of musicianship?
So kind of building off of what Jessica said, we need to have a self-reflection and be honest with ourselves about whether we can really handle or what we can handle, like how much of musicianship we can handle, and make sure we're managing our time and being good students and good musicians and whatnot. So one thing my chapter is doing is a convocation performance, which is essentially something that is in front of music educators, and like it's one of the things where they like have to go because it's part of their grade. And to do that, we have to set it ahead of time, and we have to what is the word? We have to agree. We have to. What's the word I'm thinking of? What is the word I'm looking for? We have to commit. That's the word. It's with a C. We have to commit to it. And since it is going to be in November, and it is during a time when it's like crazy with school, we're towards the end, we're almost there, but we're not there, then we really have to like look onto us. And like as a chapter, we need to be up there with musicianship, and we need to portray that, and we need to strive for the highest. Thank you.
Great. I love it. Yeah, no, I think committing is, committing in that accountability to hold ourselves and to and find ways in which we can continue musicianship. And again, just I think commit is just such a, again, simple but incredibly powerful way to participate in this month. So thank you for that. Let's go to Ashley.
Hello. So Jessica and Anthony kind of touched on it a little bit, but my first thing for it would be just to be mindful about not spreading yourself too thin, because I know we want to do a ton for Month of Musicianship and we want to give 100% in our classes and our jobs and everything, but we can't give our all if we're like this thin. So I just think being mindful on what you and your chapter are capable of doing, and if it's just the fact that most of your members are in marching bands, then like that's okay, because you don't want to hit burnout before the semester's over. But another like small thing that your chapter could do is turning like a service project / community event is to go see like all the senior recitals that happen in November. At least that's what happens at my university. And so even if it's just taking the hour and a half to go see a recital on an evening, that would mean the world to the person who's giving their recital. And then it's also an opportunity for you all to do a listening party at a recital to support your band program.
Awesome.
If I could, I have something that I just thought of that Ashley just kind of stirred in my head. So in our chapter, we are in the process of kind of overhauling our awards document. So we have some chapter awards, but something that our previous parliamentarian wanted to see done was us expand that award. And this is something that our jurisdiction committee is definitely considering with expanding our awards, is creating some way of recognizing people who go to the most concerts or go to the most recitals, because there's definitely that balance of like wanting to make sure you aren't spread too thin, like Ashley was saying. And so instead of just saying like, oh, this is a required event, or you have to like go to this many concerts, more just kind of rewarding, like, you know, we saw that you were so engaged in all these music activities throughout the semester, and here's an award for that. Like, that's going to be something that brothers will look to and like, yeah, want to strive to go to more activities like that.
That's awesome. No, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Jessica, for that addition. Mike, any other thoughts on this question?
Okay. I'm going to drop some hints on you. November is Month of Musicianship for Kappa Kappa Psi, but we do this all the time. It's not just November. Musicianship is a strategy that you should be building into your chapter activities every month. It's not just November. Why we do this in November is that we celebrate it. So part of this is bringing to the forefront the things that you may have been doing already throughout the year. And yeah, sometimes special events during the month to celebrate it are fantastic, but we don't want to try to boil the ocean, right? If the ocean's really big and we only have a little bit of energy, it's not going to be as impactful. But if it's a sustainable energy that we're carrying throughout, then celebrating it in November means that we're bringing to the forefront all the great things that we've been doing and have been planning and have been working towards. So sometimes also changing the mindset of Month of Musicianship is only a dedicated month where we talk about musicianship. Let's flip that on its head and say musicianship is something that we do all year long. This is where we highlight it. And then one of the most impactful workshops that I think I've ever been to as it related to musicianship as service. And that was something that Christine Beeson, past National President Beeson, she held a workshop. This was at the Springfield National Convention. And she talked about certain things that you can do as service projects that also enhance musicianship. Those could be things like helping your library staff go through and put music back in score order so that you're constantly reminded of what that looks like. But then you're also building your vision of what your band library looks like, and you're seeing all this new literature. It could also be something as working with people that are on your chapter or your band's communications teams and saying, we want to go out and promote our concerts so that other people are experiencing this. And that's a huge service project for your band, but it's also building musicianship, not just for you all, but for the greater community. So use that sustainable energy to focus on the things that you're already doing, and use this month as a way to highlight it and to bring it to the forefront so everybody sees it.
Just lots of snaps for that, I think. So. Awesome. Very cool. Okay, so on to our next question here. What are the best ways to keep brothers who are non-music majors involved in the Month of Musicianship? And Mike, we'll go ahead and keep it on you.
So I love that question because my home chapter, the chapter that I was a part of and the chapter that I sponsored for, I don't know, it seems like 4.5 million years. I love them and support them to this day. We don't have a major. Never did, may not while I work here. I have no idea. But that doesn't mean that they don't embody the passion to learn and perfect and heighten their skill in their musicianship. It's thinking about it differently. It's figuring out what worthwhile projects and what that literature looks like and how are they relating to music in a way that isn't going to benefit them professionally because they're not going into that field, but is feeding their soul. One of the great things that happens with non-majors is that they are getting fed the music through what we offer them. Like, we are giving them that piece of the pie that really fills the belly. And then when they leave college, they may not get it anymore. And what we do through the fraternity and what we do through Month of Musicianship is saying, we figured out the way to keep that spark alive. And we figured out a way that even though you don't do this as part of your career path, we understand that it's so important to you and why it feeds your soul, that we're going to keep that belly full. We're going to celebrate it, and we're going to give you that piece of pie every year, but we know that you can do it. And I think that's a huge thing to support non-majors in those activities, because it speaks to the level of passion that they carry, not just for music, but for celebrating our band programs and for celebrating the craft that we all do. And it's a great thing.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So let's go to Ashley. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, so like as a non-music major, like I do feel that sometimes it's really hard for me to be more involved in the program, because right now I'm only in one ensemble, and it's our basketball band. And so those are in the evenings, but we don't have rehearsals or anything like that. So I think something that would also help me rehearse for basketball band would be if like my brothers were like, hey, do you want to come practice with us? Or inviting like me to come to a recital with them and view a recital, or even just being like, hey, I want to do a duet for our chapter meeting. Would you be willing to do one with us or with me? And so I think just implementing like little things to just like entice the non-music majors back into the music building is like a starting point.
Awesome. Thank you, Ashley. All right, let's go on to Anthony. What are your thoughts on this?
So one thing that as a music major I'm more exposed to than non-music majors would be the concerts hosted in the music building. So I tend to go to those. So one thing I can do, I can reach out to my brothers who aren't music majors and invite them to come with me and to experience that with me. I can also invite them to our concerts and whatnot. Other things they could do is just ask them if they want to practice. Yeah, ask them if they want to do duets, any type of music like that, and just play along with them. Let me see. What was the other thing? Kind of what I first touched on, which is how I can introduce some new music, like stuff that I listen to in my classes, and maybe even teach them a little bit of theory that they might not get to learn, but they can have that experience through me. And then I can also have, like, I guess, a teaching experience through that way. That makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Jessica, what are your thoughts on this?
All right, buckle up, y'all, because I got a lot of thoughts. So first of all, I think it was really great that Mike pointed out that, like, while we have a month of musicianship, this is not just like something we do 1/12 of the year. This is kind of a lifestyle for brothers in the fraternity. I think that's just such a cool aspect of this organization. So kind of continuing on that thought of like something that's not inherently Month of Musicianship, sharing something for my chapter again. A few years ago, we started having a chapter concert in the spring, and all of our brothers just get together and perform some music that our lyre guard has picked out. And so it's so cool to be a part of a concert ensemble that is made of all brothers, and we have had TBS sisters participate. But so that would be something where if you do have the opportunity to get together and play chamber ensemble pieces, or just anything concert music wise, would be a really cool way to participate as a non-music major. Something else that I think would be a really awesome way to kind of fuse the musicianship side and the service side would be for brothers to get involved with local high schools or middle schools, and just kind of serve as whether it's a music or drill tech for a high school marching band, or go to a middle school and just give a free 30-minute lesson to someone who's been really struggling in middle school band. It's just such a neat thing that being a musician is not something that we major in. Obviously, we do have the profession of music education and participating in music, but as a musician, I don't have to be a music major to do all of these things, and I'm not. And I just think it's so cool that we can all participate in these ways without having to kind of be like, oh, well, you're a music major and you aren't. So making it really community-based is something that I think everyone, music major, non-music major, would really enjoy, because there are times that if you're a non-music major, maybe you're swamped in tests and papers, and if you are a music major, maybe you're just so fed up with practicing for your jury. And once you go to a high school band and you help like prepare them for MPA, and you get to be an influence for potentially future brothers, for me, that just kind of lights my heart up, and I'm like, wow, okay, life doesn't suck. I just was able to make that person's day. So I think there are a ton of ways for us to be involved in Month of Musicianship, but finding those ways to do it with other people is, I think, something that's really important and really fulfilling.
And Jessica, I love the word that you said, community. And if there's nothing else that we can do in trying to kind of bridge that gap between majors and non-majors, it's build a community of musicians. And some strategies that you could even think of are, for the non-majors, find out what they do. You may have some communications or digital media people, and they can be working with your majors to build posters for your recitals that really bring some awareness to what bringing an audience to those kinds of recitals are. Or working with some of the history majors and saying, can you give me some context about when this music was composed, and shed some brighter knowledge on why I'm doing this and how I can make it better. Help me understand the style. And by doing that, we are building not just a strong community of musicians, but really, really getting a better education that sometimes they're not getting in the classroom.
Yep.
And that's so strong and it's so valuable. That's such a great word.
I also want to kind of chime in. Jessica, you talked about like a recital or like a chapter recital. And so my chapter, for the past 2 years, we've put together a chapter recital. We do ours in the spring. And we ask everyone to be involved in some capacity. So last year we had a trumpet choir. And then some people did like duets, some people did a solo, but for some people they were participating like 3 or 4 times in the one recital because of all these little like groups that came up. And then our president like wrote pieces for us, and then our historian wrote pieces for us. So like it was cool to see all these different ways that we were getting involvement, even if we weren't all playing.
Awesome. No, I love these conversations. So, and if there are any thoughts, please feel free to chime in. Otherwise, we'll go to our next question here, which is, what are some ways we can target our programming to not only benefit the musicianship of our chapters, but also the musicianship of the other band ensembles? And we'll start with Anthony.
So one thing that my chapter does, which I hope to achieve gracefully, is something kind of similar to what Ashley has mentioned before, of playing in meetings and like playing for the chapter, and you kind of have that performance opportunity. So one thing for the ensembles, if they're mostly made of music majors, they have to do juries, and juries can be very stressful and they can be very like tedious. So one thing that we can do as a chapter is provide mock juries, which just gives them an opportunity to perform and do their stuff, and we can quiz them on their scales and whatnot. and they can just have the opportunity to play in front of a group, and they can kind of check in on themselves to see how prepared they are. And it kind of falls into that, like, playing for the chapter, and like you're in a safe place and safe open environment to just like not feel judged, but you can ask for help in that way. So that's something, yeah.
Great, awesome, thank you. All right, Mikey, what are your thoughts on this?
There we go. Sorry. There was this activity that we used to do as a chapter probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And it was trying to build better etiquette during rehearsals. And part of building strong musicians is to actually have the right level of etiquette and what a rehearsal should look like and how to do it correctly and having that respect for the person on the podium. And this was a strategy that we took from some of our education majors. And we called it band method. And it really wasn't, but it was a band method. And we would have students sit in a band setup with their instruments, and we would have some students planted in the group that some were always on their phone. Some came unprepared. They didn't have their music folder, or they were constantly looking for a pencil and disruptive. And someone always had to get up and go to the bathroom. All of these common things that we sometimes see in our rehearsals that are distracting, but it was always a student that was at the podium. And it helped build that understanding of like, these are the obstacles that we need to overcome that sometimes we create ourselves in making ensembles run really well. And building that level of empathy for the person at the podium and having an understanding of the challenges that they have in getting that good music out with us. And I thought that was just such a unique perspective of trying to say, imagine if I was the person that was leading the charge here, and how do I wrangle all of this? How do I get a better appreciation for everybody in the room and what they're bringing to the table? But also, if I'm one of those students that's planted as like the person that's always getting up and going to the bathroom, am I finally realizing how behind the ball I am in bettering my musicianship and bettering my skill and making the craft much more difficult to accomplish? So I think it's also a great way to figure out how to program those other components of community building and understanding different perspectives of what musicianship is, as opposed to just flat out saying we're gonna practice our heads off and we're gonna blow our chops because that's what we think musicianship is. And targeting some programming to come up with some really holistically positive and really beneficial programs.
Awesome, thank you. All right, let's go to Jessica. What are your thoughts on this?
I have a couple of thoughts on this. So something that my chapter has been trying to do recently is have more variety in our recruitment events. In the past, our recruitment events were very much just kind of like social based, and we didn't get a full sense of the potential new members' musicianship aside from just kind of their attesting to it. So something that our VPM did this semester was actually have a reading band as one of our recruitment events. And I think that this would be a really cool event to have as part of the Month of Musicianship, not inherently a recruitment event, but just having like, hey, we're having a reading band, come out and read with us. Funny enough, at our recruitment event, there was actually one person who came who was not coming out to recruitment. She just heard there was a reading band and wanted to come participate. And that was just kind of a spark that really was just like, oh, there are people who like are thirsty for experiences like, hey, we're having a reading band and it's just kind of a random thing and we're just going to practice some music together and become better musicians through that. And I think that would be something that would be kind of a change of pace for a lot of not only our chapters, but also our band ensembles, because we kind of already touched on how, especially in November, you're kind of getting towards the end of the semester and things are probably really crazy in marching band, and you may be like strung out with the combination of stuff with your marching band, your concert band, your chapter, school. So just having an event where it's like, okay, we aren't practicing for like a game day or like a performance. We're just kind of reading music for the sake of reading music, and building that kind of musical community between us, I think is something that would be really, really beneficial. And then, oh my gosh, I had one other thought, but it's escaping me right now. Oh no. Oh, okay, I got it. So when after I was initiated in spring 17, I was appointed to be my chapter service chair, and I worked a lot in kind of this idea of musical service, and something that I wanted our chapter to do was basically just have people, whether they were brothers or non-brothers, have kind of what I called an instrument workshop. So if you were interested in learning how to play saxophone, like here's a music major who can kind of talk you through the basics of playing saxophone, and maybe you can try to play the saxophone and get a sound out, because that can not only improve the musicianship of our band ensembles, but also kind of be a two birds with one stone sort of thing, where that's a potential recruitment event per se, where, you know, hey, we don't have a brother who is in the saxophone studio, but we have brothers who do want to learn how to play saxophone. You reach out to someone who isn't a brother, and they come in, and, you know, they get more exposure to the chapter, and that if they do end up joining the fraternity, that ends up increasing the musicianship of the chapter, and just kind of has that domino effect of building the musicianship of the chapter as well as the band ensembles.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica. And Jessica Lee actually just posted on our chat. She said that Ada from OSU does a reading band where they play original pieces and arrangements by students that they can, you know, actually hear their work being played. So I'll try to reach out to a brother of that chapter to see if they can speak more on that. But awesome. Thank you, Jessica, both of you. All right, so for the same question, I know we're kind of coming close to time here, but Ashley, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I'll just go really quick. So my chapter also did a reading band for our recruitment event, and it was actually pretty cool. We just pulled a few different pieces and played them together. And then since Jessica talked about that, I won't go too much into that one. But something that my chapter does, and it's always happened to have fallen during the month of musicianship, is that we do a conducting workshop. And so it started last year, and we put together like a small ensemble. That's my chapter snapping in the video down there. And they, so we put together like a little ensemble, and then we invite members of our music ed program to come practice conducting, and we invite a clinician. And so this particular year, we're doing an instrumental conducting workshop. We'll have 2 clinicians and 2 bands running at the same time, and we're partnering with NAFME and Phi Mu Alpha for it. So it's a really cool, like, it's just perfect because it's for the month of musicianship. We're partnering with other music organizations, and it's going to be super, super fun, and I'm really looking forward to it this year. Sorry. They're also having a pumpkin carving social right now, and that's what's happening there.
If you tap on it, you can make it a musical thing too. All the different sounds.
Oh gosh.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So our next question. So this one has to do with social media, and you know, there are positives, pros and cons to the way that we use our social media, especially to advertise and promote what we do as a fraternity. My next question for you all is: what is the best way to promote, in your opinion, what is the best way to promote the month of musicianship beyond social media? And we will start with Mikey.
Sidebar, did I see somebody from Gamma Iota do the Macarena before? There you go. But that's also kind of an awesome thing to think about, is where else do we find music in our lives? Maybe we just unplug for a hot second and have a face-to-face conversation with our brothers, our band directors, our sponsors, and actually start saying, you know, I want to do this better, and how do we do it? And promoting Month of Musicianship might be having a live conversation and talking to your brothers about generating a buzz of what you do and why it's so exciting we do what we do. Make sure that people feed off that energy that we bring to the table, and invite the community to your events. Make sure that you're not just insular with chapter. If you're making music, make music that the world can hear and emblazon it across the sky. Like, don't think that musicianship lives in a bubble. We all have a personal relationship to music, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But the message that it carries and the message that it delivers goes so far beyond than just like this 4.5 to 6 3/4 inch screen. It goes bigger than the 17-inch monitor. It goes bigger than your television. It is personal, and it is the truest form of interaction. So just live it. Don't necessarily live it on your screens.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, we're getting some snaps there. Awesome, Jessica, what are your thoughts on ways that we can promote Month of Musicianship and musicianship itself beyond social media?
So something that came to mind is just kind of what Mike was saying about doing the thing in real life and not just kind of this synthesized digital world. But I think a lot of chapters, whether they have brothers who are music majors or none of them are non-music or music majors, if they do have a school of music and a music major program, they're probably aware of kind of the burnout that our music majors experience, especially around this time. I know that when I go to symphonic band rehearsal as a non-music major, I just kind of see the look of just like, oh my gosh, I've been practicing for 5 hours today because I have juries, and like, no, I haven't practiced the music for this because I'm focused on my lesson. And so something that I think would be really cool to kind of go along the lines of like building that community is perhaps just doing something where you can give a refresh to people who are potentially like burnt out on music, because a lot of times as a music major, you can get so ingrained into the academic side of participating in music that you sometimes kind of forget what drew you to it in the first place. So I think it'd be really cool to have just kind of an open conversation between the chapter and if there is a music program at your school, just to kind of help remind them of how amazing this universal language is. I really loved what Mike said about music being the truest form of connection. That's crazy, and it's so true. So that's just one idea that I have of promoting Month of Musicianship beyond social media, and really kind of increasing those interactions between your chapter and, again, if applicable, your school of music.
Sweet, awesome, thank you. All right, we'll go to Ashley. What are your thoughts on this?
So I also kind of was thinking about just having face-to-face conversations, like Mike was saying. And then also just like, we don't always have to advertise for things via Instagram. We can, I guess, do it the old-fashioned way of like printing things and like putting it around the music department, but also making like personal announcements during ensembles. I know that like, at least in our program, if we have a quick announcement that we need to make, we're allowed to make it at the beginning of a rehearsal. We just have to let the band director know. And so I think opening up that dialogue with the band directors too, if they're not like already your DOB or sponsor, just like having a conversation, being like, hey, I have this event, can I make an announcement about it? It's for this month. Or even just telling the department like, this month is going on. So.
Awesome, thank you, Ashley. All right, Anthony, what are your thoughts?
So one thing that is a new idea that was brought to my attention was, it is the Month of Musicianship. It is also like towards the end of the school year. So those music majors are going to be more stressed out. So in the practice rooms, we can either put nice encouraging messages on the wall, and or like, if whatever you need, take one type of thing. That could also promote the month of musicianship. So it can be like, if they're freaking out, you can just put positive messages that will like inspire them or remind them why they decided music and why they're here and what brought them to this point. Stuff like that, I guess. Other than that, yeah, I was just gonna say, going up in front of the ensembles and addressing like, this is the month that we're all been waiting for, and we're all happy and excited for. Is that, yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Anthony, I have to say that I love that idea. Like, hardcore, I'm going to go to my chapter and be like, hey, y'all, so we're going to start doing this when we're cleaning up the practice rooms. We're just going to start sticking up inspirational quotes for our music major friends. I love that.
That's awesome. Hey, great ideas, everybody. I love it. I love it. All right. So, speaking of social media, Mike, I know we had discussed before, but I wanted to see if you could share a little bit more about your plan for Month of Musicianship.
So I wanted to do this a little differently. And Jessica brought this up. In the past couple of years, we've done some outreach and we've wanted to do engagement where we said, we're going to do this as a social media campaign. Let's talk about what hashtags can identify this month. And I love that that's the way that we've been going, because we're really understanding that this is something that should be communicated using the best ways of media consumption. And there's a lot of value to that. But in my real job, I'm the assistant director of a music program, actually the program that I graduated from. And we bring in our students for a band and choir and orchestra camp all at the same time before the school year starts. And I do a leadership training with them. And we did talk a lot about the concept of, if we all love music so much, why is it that we feel like we're getting burnt out a lot? Especially if we're like the leaders. And that's kind of a scary thing. And one of the things that I think we uncovered during our training session is we get sometimes really caught up in the mechanics of leadership and what is expected of us as student musicians, that we sometimes lose perspective as to what our personal connection that brought us to music was to begin with. And the conversations during that training session really escalated, because they were talking about, especially for a group of non-majors, how much time we're committing to serving the band, doing the music, taking care of our marching bands, performing with the choir, and doing all of those things that we're all really charged to do. So at the end of the training session, I asked the students, just so that I can find some hope in this, can you let me know in just a word or two, what is your relationship with our program? What is your relationship with our department? And what is your relationship with music? And is that what motivates you to continue to do what you do? And why you've determined that you want to be not just that baseline member of our band or choir program, but you really want to excel. And you want to make sure that you are living that relationship to music. And the responses, I thought, because they were really put on the spot, were going to be like, music is my love and music is great. But sometimes they gave those, I won't lie. But for a good deal of them, they were very, very poignant. And some were like, music saved me. And I had to think about it. What we do in our bands and what we do in our music programs and in our schools isn't just about making music. It is reinforcing the value that music provides us as a community. And if no other time than during Month of Musicianship, we should be letting music tell that story. So what our Month of Musicianship campaign this year is going to be is, music is my fill in the blank. And let music tell your story. Let us celebrate our connection to music so that it reinforces why it's so important to us. And when we understand and come to that level of introspection where we say, this is why I value it so much, that's the motivating force for me to jump into the practice room, for me to continue to serve our marching bands, for us to sit in our university bands and respect those directors at the podiums and practice our butts off because music deserves it. So we're going to have some printouts that can be shared, that you can print out at home and fill in the blank. Write it out, snap a picture of it, make a video telling your story, and share it with us. Music is the thing that unifies us in the fraternity, and band is our bond. So the hashtag that we're going to use for Month of Musicianship is band is our bond. And I think once we start telling the story of why music is so important to us, celebrating Month of Musicianship is going to be something that we do not just in November, but it's that lifestyle change that's going to bring it to us all year long.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So just as a way to help everyone prep sort of your introspection period and to help lead us into this activity, I've asked each of the panelists to think about what does music mean to them and to fill in the blank of music is my blank. So if we could go through, Jessica, if you want to start, what does music mean to you?
Music is my freedom. And that has been something that when I saw this this phrase of like, okay, we're gonna do this thing, I thought it was gonna be hard to like choose one thing, but once I thought of the word freedom, I was like, yeah, that's it. Because if we're being completely honest, life gets hard, and there are times where you feel like no one's there for you and you're all alone, but in those times, there's still music. There are memories that I have of listening to a piece or performing a piece that had so much emotional impact on me that it kind of takes me out of this space of everything is burning down and the fire is just so strong and like, oh, I have this due and that and then this person and I have to deal with this. It gives me that breath to, oh my gosh, that's kind of cool. Music is like my breath mark in my life. Like it's just that time of being able to sustain to the next phrase. Guys, this is super meta. I like am coming up with this as I go. But like if I think of music as or if I think of life as music, like metaphorically, I feel like music is that breath mark where it's that fuel that I can take up and that gives me the strength to go on. So yeah, music is my freedom.
Awesome. No, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anthony, what about you?
For me, music has always been my family. And, growing up, I am a biracial human being, and I didn't really fit in my two groups growing up in predominantly Hispanic areas. So I felt left out at some times. And then come middle school, when I joined the band, I was just hooked on it. And my director, she made me feel very welcomed, and she was really like supportive. And then like when I just like meet the other people, they became like some of my best friends and my closest friends. And then going on to high school, and it's just like this group of people who like, you look at them and you say like, oh, everyone's different from each other, but we're all combined by music. And that's like what brings us together. That's our bond. That's what makes us a family. Yeah. So, and that still holds true in college. And that's why I want to pursue it as a career, just because it means so much to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Anthony. All right. Ashley, what about you?
So I kind of was like Jessica, where I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be really hard to think about. And for me, the phrase that popped in my head right away was music is my safe space. I remember in middle school and high school, like whenever there was a free period, I was always in the band room. If I was too stressed out and needed an escape, I was in the band room. And then even now, like I find myself partially drawn to just like do homework in our music building, just because being close to the band room, because they lock our band rooms at night, like that just gives me the safe space that I need, just even being close to it. And even though I can't always pick up my instrument and play all the time, just like being in the space where music is performed is enough to calm me back down.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Mikey, what about you?
First, I didn't expect, because I didn't know your answers to begin with, how important it is to share these things. Because honestly, having met some of you for really the first time ever about an hour and a half ago, I would never have known that music was such a profound and fulfilling thing to you. It's not just a surface thing, but it actually does fill a really big component of our identity. And when I think about what music is to me, music is my constant. From as early as I can remember, I've had a soundtrack to my life. From growing up to where I am today, there's always a piece of music, or there's always a sound that is associated with the high points and the low points. And at no point has music ever vacated me. So it's always been my constant, and I know that it always will be. And knowing how important it is to other people that share the same passions that we do for music and for band, I can see why it's a safe space and why it's our freedom and why it's our family. And it helps me get a better understanding of who we are as brothers. And I think that is just so awesome. So I thank you for sharing those things. That's so incredible.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, no, thank you all so much for your willingness to share and be vulnerable with all of us. Like Mikey said, this is a lot of the first time we're all meeting, so it is incredibly special just to be able to be a part of this conversation with each of you. So for all of our brothers listening, the call to action here is, when we hit November 1st, be on the lookout on our social media for the template for you to download and for you to fill out. It's a basic PDF or an image that you can print out that says music is my blank. And from now till sometime in November, think about what music means to you. Dig deep into those emotions and think about those special memories that you have and why you joined KKSI, why you decided to join band, and why you are still enjoying this, why you are still giving back through just playing music, giving back through service, whatever it is. Think deep, dig deep into that. Do we have any other questions? I know we went over, so thank you all so much for sticking with us. Any other questions that you all have? Any of you? If you do, Mikey, how can people reach out to you for further questions?
Anyone can email me at mnapolitano, so that's MNAPOLITANO @kkpsi.org.
Awesome. Pikachu. Awesome. Thank you. And we also, we believe we have another celebrity sighting here, past national president Jack Lee.
Oh, hello, friends. How is everyone?
Better
I just
now
wanted
that
to
you're
sneak
here.
in. Can you even hear me? Okay, I just wanted to sneak in for a few minutes because Jessica put the computer down, and it gave me an opportunity just to kind of see what was going on. I only got to see about the last 10 minutes or so, but I just wanted to say how impressed I continue to be with this National Council, specifically with Bong and Mikey for the work that they're doing just to advance the programs, but most impressed by some of our active membership and what they do. If there's anything that excites me about Kappa Psi, it's the future. And you guys are the future. And so Jessica and Ashley, you guys are doing remarkable work now. Spencer, Anthony, ladies first was why. Spencer and Anthony, you guys just sitting in the Gamma Iota chapter I see down there, carving pumpkins. That's just some excitement about what's going on because they're still partaking in it. And so I'm excited to see where November takes everyone as we kind of celebrate what we do, even though we do that each and every day, but one month that we really get to press that out. And so I just wanted to say thank you guys for letting me sneak in for a few minutes.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack. Again, thank you to all of our panelists for being a part of this discussion and helping us lead into the month of musicianship. To all of our brothers who are listening, thank you so much for your questions. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your commitment to KKSI and our purposes. And if there's nothing else, I bid you all a great night and lots of love. Thank you all. Good night.
Have a good night, everyone.